Hi, welcome back to the Special Needs Marriage and Family channel. I'm Brad Lee, and tonight I want to address the question of what is a special needs marriage? I've been talking about that. This very channel is named the Special Needs Marriage and Family channel. So tonight I want to give some conversation to what is a definition of a special needs marriage? How do I define it? What does it mean? What does it look like? What are the impacts? And at the outset, I would just simply say this, that defining that and really supporting special needs marriages, as I use the term, has really become the crux of my life's work, and as I look toward the future, and really the centerpiece of my academic work and my doctoral pursuit at Liberty University. So I would challenge you, if you have a better definition, I would love to hear it. Or if you have a way to expand this, or even if you disagree, if there's something in it that you say, that doesn't make sense, it doesn't resonate with me, but I would appreciate some feedback, and obviously if you subscribe or like the Special Needs Marriage and Family channel, that would be very helpful. So anyway, without further ado, I want to give you my definition of what special needs marriage is, and that is simply this. The special needs marriage is one in which one or more children are either born, and I should add in parenthetically, this can also occur by adoption in some cases. But in which one or more children are either born or receive a diagnosis, be it physical, developmental, or behavioral, that impacts the normal or typical flow of married life. So what do I mean exactly by that? The normal flow, or the normal or typical flow of married life. Here's the bottom line. Marriage is frankly challenging to begin with. Children obviously bring some challenges of their own. But what I really want you to think about with me is how does having a special needs child impact that marital dynamic? And kind of given that working definition, I want to give you three areas, and there are more, but these are three kind of primary ones that I think when I talk about this with people that don't have special needs children particularly, that they go, that makes sense, I could see that. And I'll start with the first one, and really one that's overlooked, and that is the long-term impact on the special needs marriage. And I explain it this way. A few years ago, my wife and I were at her high school reunion, and we sat across the table at dinner from this couple. Of course, everybody's about the same age. We're in our mid-40s-ish. And this couple, I think, who had maybe 2 kids. They're nice people. So if they're watching, I apologize. I don't mean to offend you. But hear this. As we sat there, they began to share with how they just did not know what to do with themselves because their last child had gone off to college. And they have all this time on their hands, and they don't know what to do with each other. And I'll never forget sitting there, and I glanced at Lori, my wife, and we both kind of had that look, without anybody else knowing what that look was, but it was just kind of disgust, realizing that they have no clue that we may or may not get to have that long-term view of being empty nesters and enjoying our golden years, which I think is part of the American dream of roaming the country or the world, and seeing things after all the kids have launched and are off doing their thing. But here's the impact of a special needs marriage. If you have a special needs child, in some cases you do not know how independent or dependent upon you that child is going to be when they turn 18 or when you're in your golden years. So that's the first impact, is the long term. The second one is time. And I want to explain it this way, because children obviously take time to raise. We have 6 of them, so I know a little bit about that. But I want to explain it to you in this sense. And I'll use a very key term, and particularly you folks that have autistic children understand this. And again, our son, Caden, he's 7, he has Down syndrome, and he was recently born with autism. And in the special needs world, what we call transitions are a huge component of parenting special needs children, particularly specific diagnoses like autism, for example, is a huge one that really focuses on the importance and significance of transitions. So what is a transition? That is simply going from playtime to getting ready to go to school. And that sounds simple enough, to a typical child, right? Our 4-year-old, I can say to Grayson, hey dude, put your shoes on, grab your coat, it's time to go to school. Now he may not like it, but he can cognitively process that and he can obey, hopefully, and go along, and things are fine. He may throw a fit, he may want his milk, he may want an iPad, whatever. But for example, an autistic child, transitions become, in many cases, points of great contention and meltdowns, and just they're just they can be horrific scenes, and you've seen them in the grocery store. Some of you have experienced that, or at Walmart, and you're watching somebody else, and one of the painful parts of being a special needs parent is when you're in a public space and your child has a meltdown, for example. And everybody else around you may not know that your child has autism or any other diagnosis. All of a sudden, it just like your kid is acting up and they're having a meltdown, and you can't do anything about it as a parent. But that's not the reality. The reality is those transitions trigger things in the minds of those kids that we have no control over. And so the transition becomes a moment of great anxiety for both the child and the parent. But here's the impact. Think of how many transitions are in a child's life in a day, whether they're going to school, whether they're going from playtime to lunch, from nap time or to nap time, to dinner time, to bath time, to bedtime. There are so many transitions in a day. And children have various reactions to those transitions. And it takes a lot more time to help move those kids. Now, you may say, well, if it takes 5 minutes for them to get their shoes on, that's no big deal, right? Well, how many transitions are there in a day in the life of a special needs child? That time adds up exponentially compared to a typical child. And I can tell you, as a father of currently a 7-year-old with Down syndrome and autism, it takes an exponential amount more time to help him transition than it does our 4-year-old, who we can say, hey, go take care of your stuff, get ready to go. And in fact, I'm probably recording at a bad time right now because we're at about the transition of bedtime. But I'm going to try to finish this up. That's reality in life, right? If you're watching, you know exactly what I mean. So time that it takes to engage in all of those transitions, frankly, takes its toll. It wears parents out. I could get a little, I'll probably do a segment on autism specifically, and just some of the findings that I've been reading about how weary some of the effort it takes to parent children with autism. And please hear me, I'm not saying that having a special needs child is a burden, but there are challenges with it. And the point that I'm trying to make is that it impacts the marriage. And the time that we've now spent in all of these transitions, for example, in a day, how much time has that taken away from even my other children or other things that I need to be doing, and even the marriage? So that's an impact of the marriage, which bleeds into the last thing, and I'm going to wrap this up, and that is what I call routine attachment interruption. Now, here's what I mean by that. Let's take the issue of conflict management. In any given day, if you're like me, you have some minor conflict with your spouse, whether it's over laundry or whether it's over a bill that didn't get paid or whatever it is. We continually have to manage conflict in our relationships, and specifically our marriages. Here's the impact. The impact is, if my wife and I have a tiff, let's call it, and all of a sudden we realize, hey, let's talk this out. Let's get this out in the open. Maybe my feelings are hurt, or I have something to say, or something that my wife needs to get off of her chest. We begin to engage in that in hopefully a healthy way. With a typical child, and this is the difference. A typical child may come in and they want something. I can say to my 4-year-old, Grayson, Mommy and Daddy are talking right now. I need you to go in the other room and play for 10 minutes. Or go watch your show, go play on your iPad. He can do that at 4 years old. He's a typical 4-year-old. If I say that to my 7-year-old, he doesn't cognitively process time and space in the same way. And his need in the immediacy of the moment trumps the relational dynamic of the marital issue that I'm trying to work out with my wife. Now, that may sound like a mouthful, but that's the impact, is if you think about that, of what I call the impact of routine attachment interruption. And again, if you have a special needs child, you know what I'm talking about. It happens constantly, and it happens on a daily basis. And frankly, it takes its toll over time if you don't find other ways to find time to repair those moments of conflict and to manage them and navigate that attachment interruption that frankly a special needs child could bring in their marriage. And again, that doesn't always, it's not always behavioral. It can be physical if you have a child that's disabled physically, and the need to somehow care for them medically usually trumps some of the relational dynamics going on. So anyway, there's my definition. Again, the definition of a special needs marriage is a marriage in which one or more children are either born with or receive a diagnosis, be it physical, developmental, or behavioral, that impacts the normal or typical flow of married life. I hope this has been helpful. Hope you give me some feedback on that. Again, thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching.